September 15th, 1940, 21,000 feet above the glitter of the Thames estuary. The air is thin, bitingly cold, and echoes with the thrum of a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. Flight Lieutenant Brian Sandy Lane, section leader in Noah's 19 Squadron, grips the spade stick of his Spitfire mech. His eyes, stinging from the cold and the constant strain, never stop moving, scanning the sun-drenched emptiness, looking for the Hun. The radio crackles. Bandits, 11 o'clock high, tally-ho. There, a swarm of black dots. Messerschmitt Bf 109Es, the E-mills, diving out of the sun, their yellow noses glinting. Lane's voice is calm, clipped, over the RT. Red section. Brake starboard. Engage. He kicks the rudder bar and slams the stick to the right. The Spitfire responds instantly, its elliptical wings carving a brutal turn. The force is immediate. It doesn't push him back. It pushes him down. His world compresses. First, his legs feel like lead. Then, the pressure builds in his abdomen, an invisible giant pressing the air from his lungs. He tries the pilot's trick, the grunt, tensing every muscle in his stomach and legs, screaming against the strain to keep the blood in his head. But the 109 is good. The German pilot pulls tighter, trying to get inside Lane's turn. Lane follows, or hauling back on the stick. 5 Gs, 6 Gs. The world dissolves. It starts not with black, but with grey. A grey out. The vibrant blue of the sky fades to a washed-out monochrome. The bright yellow spinner of the 109 in his sights dims. His peripheral vision collapses, tunneling down to a single point. He's still pulling. He has to. 7 Gs. The grey veil turns to deepest black. Flight Lieutenant Lane is now unconscious, slumped forward in his cockpit, his hand frozen on the stick. His $1 million fighter, a pinnacle of aeronautical engineering, is now just a 6,000-pound falling coffin. He's flying blind at 400 miles per hour, held captive by physics. This is G-LOT, G-induced loss of consciousness, the single greatest killer of fighter pilots, second only to enemy action. This scene, or variations of it, is the terror of the air war. The Spitfire and the Hurricane are technological marvels. They are faster, more agile, and can turn tighter than anything the Luftwaffe flies. But in 1940, a terrifying realization is dawning on RAF command. Their machines have become too good. The aircraft can withstand 9, 10, even 12 Gs. The pilots cannot. In a dogfight, the man who can turn tighter wins. But every time a pilot attempts that winning turn, he risks G-lock. He has, perhaps, 3 seconds from the onset of 7 Gs to total blackout. He will then be unconscious for 15 to 30 seconds. In the chaotic, split-second geometry of aerial combat, 30 seconds is an eternity. It is enough time to lose the enemy, lose control, or be ripped apart by 20mm cannon fire without ever seeing it coming. The reports filtering back to the Air Ministry are desperate. Pilots are found dead in pristine aircraft. Holes in the wings but no damage to the cockpit, having simply flown straight into the ground. Victims of the blackout. The problem is one of simple, brutal physiology. When you pull a 7G turn, your body weighs 7 times its normal amount. Your 10-pound head now weighs 70 pounds. And your blood, a heavy fluid, obeys the same law. It is violently centrifuged from the brain, pooling in the legs and lower abdomen. The heart, no matter how strong, simply cannot pump against that much pressure. The brain, starved of oxygen, shuts down. The British are desperate for a solution. They try everything. Pilots are taught to tense their muscles, to grunt. They are told to shout. They are wrapped in tight abdominal binders, like medical corsets, called abdominal belts. But they offer only minimal protection, perhaps half a G. It isn't enough. The problem crosses the Atlantic, landing on the desk of the National Research Council of Canada, NRC. Britain is looking to its Commonwealth allies for a breakthrough. In Toronto, the problem finds its way to a committee on aviation medical research, headed by the legendary co-discoverer of insulin, Sir Frederick Banting. And Banting knows a man, not an engineer, not a flight dynamicist, a quiet, unassuming medical researcher working in the Banting and Best Medical Research Institute. His name is Wilbur R. Franks. Franks is not studying aviation. He is In fact, researching cancer. His work involves high-speed centrifuges, complex filtration systems, and the study of cellular biology. He spends his days analyzing the effects of high gravity on cells. But Franks is also a tinkerer, a man who builds his own equipment, who understands mechanics and pressure. When Banting presents him with the problem, pilots are blacking out. Franks looks at it not as an aviation problem, but as a plumbing problem. The body, he reasons, is just a system of fluid-filled tubes. The problem is that the fluid, blood, is being forced to the bottom. How do you stop fluid from pooling in a flexible container? The attempts so far are focused on muscle, on brute force. The Germans are experimenting with tight boots, the Americans with inflatable belts. They are all failing. Frank's mind goes in a completely different direction. It is an idea so simple, so counterintuitive, that no aeronautical engineer would have ever conceived of it. It is an idea born from medicine, from biology. He remembers a principle of hydrostatics. A giraffe, for instance, has a massive heart to pump blood all the way up its long neck, but when it bends down to drink, why doesn't all that blood rush to its head and kill it? Because the giraffe's skin, particularly on its legs, is incredibly tight and non-distensible, acting like a natural compression stocking. Franks also knows that a human, when submerged in water, can withstand far greater G-forces. Why? Because the pressure of the water outside the body perfectly counteracts the pressure of the blood inside the body. The water provides an external, incompressible counterpressure, keeping the blood where it belongs. You cannot, of course, submerge a Spitfire pilot in a bathtub of water at 20,000 feet. But Wilbur Franks, the cancer researcher, has a thought. What if you didn't have to? He walks into his laboratory. He isn't thinking about airplanes. He's thinking about a water-filled boot. He begins sketching. He ignores all the previous attempts at air bladders, tight belts, and muscle tensing. He's about to invent a suit based on the simple, elegant principle of a column of water. He's about to build the first G-suit, and in a moment of inspired, accidental genius, he will use the only materials he has on hand, scraps of rubber, fabric, and a bicycle pump, to create a prototype that will change the face of the air war. Early 1941, the Banting Institute, Toronto. The laboratory smells of rubber cement and ozone. Dr. Wilbur Franks is not looking at cancer cells. He is on his hands and knees, tailoring. His creation is monstrously ugly. It looks less like military hardware and more like a pair of high-water trousers from a deep-sea diving suit, cobbled together from sheets of vulcanized rubber and canvas. This is the Franks flying suit, Mark. His logic is elegant. He has taken 2 layers of rubberized fabric and stitched them together, creating a pair of trousers with a hollow interlining. This interlining is connected by rubber hoses to a simple filling point. The principle remains unchanged from his first thought. Hydrostatics. Before climbing into the cockpit, the pilot will be filled with water, several gallons of it. The water settles in the suit's legs and abdomen, forming a perfectly conforming, incompressible liquid shield. When the pilot pulls a 5G turn, the pilot's blood is forced down, but simultaneously, the 5G force acts on the water in the suit. The water, being fluid, transmits this pressure perfectly and instantly onto the pilot's legs and abdomen. It is an external artificial circulatory system. The water pressure outside balances the blood pressure inside. It should work, but should doesn't save lives. Franks needs to test it. He goes to his superiors at the National Research Council. He needs a human centrifuge, a machine large enough to swing a man around at speeds that will replicate the forces of a dogfight. The NRC tells him no such machine exists in Canada. Frank's response is simple: then I'll build one, in a disused building at the NRC's new flight research facility in Ottawa. Franks and his small team assemble their human merry-go-round. It is a feat of pure Canadian improvisation. They don't have a powerful, precision-engineered engine. They use a spare gasoline engine. They don't have a hardened steel gondola. They weld together a small, coffin-like cab from scrap metal and bolt it to the end of a long steel arm. The machine is terrifying. It is unbalanced, loud, and smells of exhaust fumes. They nickname it the K-machine. The first tests are on rabbits. They are strapped into the cab. The engine sputters to life. The arm begins to spin, faster and faster. The unprotected rabbits, monitored by Franks, go limp, their reflexes vanishing as the G-force slams their blood south. They are glocked. Then he tries again. This time, he wraps a rabbit in a miniature version of his water-filled suit. He spins the centrifuge. 5 Gs, 10 Gs, 15 Gs. The rabbit is alert. It twitches its nose. It is completely unaffected. The proof is there. Now, a man must fly it. The line of volunteers is not long. This is not a sleek X-plane. It is a homemade contraption, spinning on a gasoline motor, designed to render a man unconscious. Frank steps forward. He, better than anyone, knows the risks. If his calculations are wrong, if the suit fails, the K-machine could easily cause a cerebral hemorrhage or crush his spine. He climbs into the narrow cab. His assistants begin to fill the suit. Gallon after gallon of cold water sloshes in, filling the legs, rising up his torso. He is encased. He feels less like a scientist and more like a waterlogged sack of potatoes. It is incredibly heavy and awkward. On the ground, he can barely move. He gives the signal, take it up. The engine roars. The cab lurches, then begins its rotation. The circle is tight, the onset of G-force sickeningly rapid. 1 G, 2 Gs, the normal pull of gravity. 3 Gs. His body feels heavy, his hands like blocks of lead. 4 Gs. The grunt reflex kicks in. He tenses, his vision just beginning to dim at the edges. This is the point where a pilot in a Spitfire would start to grey out. This is the wall. He signals for more. 5 Gs. The water in the suit, which was a sloshing feeling, instantly transforms. It is no longer liquid. It becomes a solid, vice-like grip, a liquid armor. He feels an immense, perfectly distributed pressure clamp down on his legs, his thighs, his stomach. It's as if a giant's hands are squeezing him, refusing to let the blood leave his upper body. 6 Gs. The pressure is immense, but he can see. The world is not grey. The gauges in front of him are clear. More, he signals. 7 Gs. The force that renders a combat pilot unconscious. Franks is wide awake. He feels compressed, uncomfortable, but his mind is sharp. He waves his hand, a prearranged signal. He is fine. More! The team pushes the engine. 8 Gs. 9 Gs. 10 Gs. The K-machine is screaming. Wilbur Franks is experiencing G-forces that would kill an unprotected man, forces that would rip a hurricane's wings off. And he is thinking clearly. He's analyzing the sensation. He signals to stop. The arm slows, the crushing weight receding, replaced by the slosh of cold water. The cab grinds to a halt. Franks pulls himself out, dripping, exhausted and triumphant. The cancer researcher from Toronto, using garden hoses, rubber sheets, and a homemade centrifuge, has just physiologically broken the sound barrier. He has proven that the human body can be protected. The news flashes to the RAF. The Canadians have a suit, but the Battle of Britain has been won. The urgency has, for a moment, faded. The RAF, skeptical of this Canadian water suit, sends over a promising young flight surgeon, Squadron Leader W. H. Dusty Miller, to evaluate the device. Simultaneously, the Americans, now watching the war in Europe with growing alarm, are working on their own solution. Their approach is different. Led by a team at the Mayo Clinic, they're experimenting with air, inflatable bladders stitched into a corset, powered by the aircraft's own pneumatic systems. The race is on. Frank's water suit is simple. It's passive. It works on physics alone. But it is also cumbersome, heavy, and cold. The American air suit is complex, reliant on pumps and valves, but potentially lighter and more comfortable. The British are caught in the middle. But in 1941 they need a solution now. The air war is intensifying. The new Focke-Wulf Fu-190, a deadly German fighter, is starting to appear. An aircraft known for its incredible roll rate and pull-out performance. The RAF needs an edge. They send Franks' design to the UK for evaluation. The Franks flying suit is about to meet the Royal Air Force, and it is not a happy introduction. Early 1942, RF Station Farnborough, Hampshire, UK. The air is thick with the smell of damp grass, aviation fuel, and institutional skepticism. Squadron leader Dusty Miller, the RAF flight surgeon, stands next to a grim-faced RAF test pilot. The pilot is eyeing the Canadian invention, which is hanging from a hook, dripping a small puddle onto the tarmac. "You're joking." The pilot, Flight Lieutenant Davies, says he's a Battle of Britain veteran. His G protection is a silk scarf and the calluses on his abdominal muscles. "You want me to fly a Mark V Spitfire in a pair of wet trousers?" Wilbur Franks, who has accompanied his invention across the Atlantic, can only offer a strained smile. "Doctor," he clarifies, "and yes, trust me, you won't feel the weight in the air." "It's not the weight I'm worried about, Doc," Davies mutters. "It's the bailing out. This thing's a bloody anchor. If I have to jump, I'll hit the channel and go down like a brick." This is the core of the RAF's resistance. The suit is heavy, it is cold, and it is completely alien. But orders are orders. Davies, sighing, begins the humiliating process. He strips down and climbs into the rubber suit. A technician moves in with a hose and begins to fill the leggings with cold water. Davies shivers, his curses muffled by the flight gear he's pulling on over the top. He feels, he will later write, like a trussed-up, waterlogged goose. He waddles to his Spitfire, the ground crew helping him heave his water-filled legs into the narrow cockpit. He straps in, plugs in his RT and oxygen. Farnborough Tower, this is Viceroy 25 test flight, rolling. The Spitfire thunders down the runway and climbs into the grey English sky. For 10 minutes, Davies performs standard manoeuvres. The suit is a cold, sloshing annoyance. He feels the liquid move with every bank and roll. Viceroy 25, the voice of the ground controller, Squadron Leader Miller, crackles in his ear. "Begin G-tolerance sequence. Commence 4G turn. Roger. Commencing 4G turn." Davies scans the horizon, banks the Spitfire and eases the stick back. He tenses, grunts. It's a standard firm turn. He feels the pressure, but his vision is clear. 4G's sustained, no grey out. Suit feels tighter. Proceed to 5Gs. Davies noses down, builds speed and pulls harder. 5Gs. This is the edge. This is where the world normally begins to wash out. He grunts, his face flushing. He feels the invisible giant push him down. And then he feels the suit react. It is not a squeeze. It is a hydraulic clamp. The cold water, now weighing 5 times its normal amount, becomes an unyielding external skeleton. It grips his legs, his thighs, his stomach, instantaneous and absolute. He is seeing. The rivets on his wing are in perfect focus. 5Gs sustained, he says, his voice strained by the force, but clear. Vision is normal. This is remarkable. Viceroy, if able, proceed to your personal G limit. Call out your blackout point. Davies takes a breath. Roger, controller, pushing it. He dives again, the engine whining. He hauls the stick back into his stomach. The G-meter needle leaps. 6 Gs. The airframe shudders. This is his absolute limit. This is where the black veil always falls. He's screaming his tensing maneuver, his neck muscles rigid, but the suit is holding him. The water armor is doing what his muscles cannot. 6 Gs, vision clear. I'm reading the gauges, I'm fine. 7 Gs. The Spitfire is screaming. The wings are flexing. Davies is experiencing a force that should have him slumped unconscious over the stick. He is wide awake. He feels like his head is being torn from his shoulders, but he can see. 7 Gs? 7? Bloody hell, the plane won't take much more of this. He eases off, breathing heavily, his heart hammering. He has just proven Wilbur Frank's theory in the most violent laboratory on Earth. He lands a changed man. "It works," he says, water sloshing out as he's helped from the cockpit. "It's a bloody miracle, and it's cold as a witch's." Well, it's cold, but it works. The suit is a physiological triumph, but it is a logistical nightmare. Just as the RAF is debating the wetsuit, a new contender arrives, an American team from the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, led by Dr. Earl Wood, lands at Farnborough. they bring their own solution, the Type G1 anti-G suit. It is the complete opposite of Frank's invention. Where the Canadian suit is heavy, wet, and passive, working on water inertia, the American suit is light, dry, and active. It's a pair of simple cotton trousers with rubber bladders sewn into the abdomen, thighs, and calves. It plugs directly into the aircraft's vacuum or pneumatic system. As the pilot pulls a turn, a small, spring-loaded valve, the G valve, senses the force and automatically inflates the bladders with air. The RAF pilots are ecstatic. The G1 is comfortable, it's light, it doesn't require being filled up like a water bottle. A direct fly-off is organised, the wet versus the dry. The results are definitive. The American air bladder suit is good. It gives a pilot an extra 1.5 Gs of tolerance. A 6G turn feels like 4.5 G. It is a solid, war-winning advantage. But the Canadian water suit is better. It gives a pilot a 2.5 G, sometimes 3 G, advantage. It is, physiologically, the superior design. But it has a fatal flaw, one Franks had not anticipated. In the hands of an aggressive combat pilot, the Frank suit is too good. A pilot, feeling no grey out, no warning signs, will keep pulling the stick back, trying to get his sights on the enemy. He is no longer limited by his body. He is limited only by his aircraft, and the aircraft cannot take it. Test pilots, encased in the Frank suit, pull 9, 10, even 11 Gs. They come back to base, triumphant. With their Spitfire's wings permanently bent, the main spars are rippled, the rivets popped. The suit allows a pilot to literally destroy his own plane in mid-air, simply by turning too hard. The RAF makes a pragmatic decision. They adopt the American system, the dry air bladders. It is good enough. It provides a solid advantage. It's comfortable, and it doesn't risk the pilot overstressing the airframe. The RAF, in collaboration with the Americans, will refine this airsuit, leading to the G-pants that will become standard for the US Army Air Forces and the RAF's fighter command. Wilbur Frank's invention, the undisputed physiological champion, is rejected. It is deemed too heavy, too cold, too complex, and too effective. It seems the story of the Canadian G-suit will end here, a brilliant but failed experiment. But in another part of the Admiralty, the Royal Navy Fleet Air Arm is paying close attention. They have a different, more violent problem than the high-altitude fighter boys. Their pilots fly aircraft like the Fairey Fulmar and the New Seafire. They take off from short, pitching carrier decks. Their primary job is not just dogfighting, it is dive bombing. They must dive thousands of feet, straight at an enemy warship, release their bomb, and then pull up, hard, at sea level, where the air is thick and the G-forces are bone-crushing. And in late 1942, they are planning the largest amphibious invasion in history, Operation Torch, the landing in North Africa. The Navy pilots will be flying constant cover, taking off, striking, and landing under immense pressure. They will be subject to repeated brutal G-loads. They don't need comfort. They don't need good enough. They need the single best anti-G protection that science can create. They need the suit that will not fail, even if the wings groan. The Royal Navy sends an urgent request to the National Research Council of Canada. They don't want the air suit. They want the wet suit. They order 1,000 units of the Frank's flying suit, Mark III. Wilbur Frank's invention, rejected by the fighter pilots, has just been given its first combat assignment. It is going to war with the stringbags and seafires of the Fleet Air Arm. November 8, 1942, 06:15 a.m., 14,000 feet above the coast of Oran, Algeria. The world is a cold, dark blue, just beginning to bleed with the orange of dawn. Sub-Lieutenant Alistair Scotty Reed, Royal Navy Volunteer Reserve, shivers. It's not just the altitude, it's the water. He's been sitting in the cockpit of his Supermarine Seafire Ibby for an hour, strapped into the Canadian hydrostatic suit, as the boffins call it. His legs are numb, encased in the cold, sloshing rubber. Below him, the vast, dark shapes of the Operation Torch invasion fleet, Force H, are just visible. Cruisers and carriers maneuvering as the first landing craft churn towards the beaches. His squadron, 807 Naval Air Squadron, launched from the deck of HMS Formidable. Their job is top cover. Keep the Vichy French Air Force off the landing force. Bandits, 10 o'clock low, Angels 5, crackles the voice of his flight leader. Scotty's head snaps left. There, a formation of 3 fighters, climbing out of the haze from the Tafaroui airfield, Dewoitine D-520s, fast, agile, and piloted by men who, yesterday, were allies. Tally-ho, blue section, take the starboard pair, I'll take the leader. The Seafire, a navalized Spitfire, is a thoroughbred. Scotty rolls and dives, the Merlin engine roaring as he pushes the throttle through the gate. The lead Dewoitine sees him and brakes hard, pulling up into a steep climbing turn. This is it, the classic dogfight. Scotty follows, hauling back on the stick. The G-force slams into him. He feels the crushing weight, and then he feels the suit. The cold, sloshing water in his legs instantly becomes a solid hydraulic brace. It is an alien sensation, an external, unyielding pressure that grips his legs and abdomen, locking his blood in place. He skips the grey out entirely. The French pilot, he knows, is unprotected. He's relying on muscle, on grunting, on hope. The 2 fighters are now in a brutal, climbing spiral. Scotty can see the French pilot's canopy, perhaps 300 yards ahead. The Dewoitine is turning well, but Scotty has the power. He needs to get inside that turn. He pulls the stick back another inch. The Seafire groans. The G-meter needle touches 6. Scotty's vision is perfectly, terrifyingly clear. He can see the puffs of flak, Archie, blooming thousands of feet below. The Dewoitine, still ahead, suddenly flinches. The turn widens, just slightly. It's an involuntary, fractional hesitation. The French pilot has hit his limit. He's blacking out. He has to ease off the G-load to save himself. That fraction is all Scotty needs. Gotcha, he whispers, his throat tight, encased in his liquid armor. He pulls the stick back even further, into his gut. 7 Gs. He cuts inside the Frenchman's turn, the nose of the Seafire tracking smoothly. The D-520 fills his gun sight. He presses the red firing button. Brrrt, brrrt. The percussive slam of 2 20mm Hispana cannons and 4 303 Browning machine guns fills the cockpit. He sees the 20mm shells strike the cockpit and engine cowling of the Dewoitine. The French fighter explodes in a flash of orange and black, tumbling end over end toward the Algerian hills. Scotty breaks away, his heart hammering, gasping for air. He is exhausted, but he is conscious. The suit, the cold, heavy, miserable Canadian suit, has just allowed him to outfly a superb opponent. It gave him 3 seconds of consciousness that the other man did not have. This scene is being repeated across the skies of North Africa. Fleet Air Arm pilots, flying Seafires, martlets, and even the slower fairy albacores are discovering their secret weapon. It's not just in dogfighting, it's in the pull-out. Later that day, Scotty's squadron is retasked for a ground attack run on the La Senia airfield. He dives from 10,000 feet, his Seafire screaming toward the earth at over 400 miles per hour, the air raid sirens on the ground wailing. His target, a line of parked bombers. The ground rushes up, the altimeter is unwinding like a broken clock. 3,000 feet, 2,000 feet. He releases his bombs now. The hard part. He must pull out. At this low altitude and high speed, the G-force will be instantaneous and monumental. This is the maneuver that kills. Pilots black out and simply vanish, flying themselves straight into the ground. He holds back on the stick with both hands. The G-force hits him like a physical blow. 8 Gs. His head, weighing over 150 pounds, is slammed down into his chest. He cannot lift it, but the Frank suit does its job. The hydraulic pressure is immense, a solid case of water and gravity. His vision, while constricted, holds. He does not black out. He is fully, agonizingly aware as the Seafire's wings bite the thick air, the airframe shuddering, the wings flexing. The nose of his aircraft comes up. The The red earth is replaced by the blue of the Mediterranean. He levels off, his wingtips just 50 feet above the water, his engine at full power. He is alive. The reports that filter back to the Admiralty after Operation Torch are glowing. The Frank's flying suit is a war winner. Pilots are surviving maneuvers that were previously considered suicidal. The suit's cumbersome nature, its coldness, its weight, all are forgiven. It is the only thing that works, every time, without fail. It becomes the standard, non-negotiable uniform for every Royal Navy Fleet Air Arm pilot. It will be worn in the glare of the Mediterranean, in the frigid convoys of the North Atlantic, and, crucially, as the war turns, in the vast, empty expanse of the Pacific. But the suit's story splits. While the British Navy has embraced the wet suit, the massive, rapidly expanding US Army Air Forces and the RAF's Fighter Command have committed fully to the dry suit, the Air Bladder G pants developed at the Mayo Clinic. This American suit is lighter, more comfortable, and integrated into the aircraft. It becomes the iconic image of the high-altitude fighter pilot, the P-51 Mustang Ace over Germany, clad in his A2 jacket, oxygen mask, and inflatable G-pants. The airsuit works well. It gives pilots that crucial 1.5 G advantage, and it's easy to mass-produce and maintain. It becomes the Allied standard. And so, Wilbur Frank's invention, the physiologically superior device, becomes a footnote. It is the overlooked hero, the specialist tool. It is adopted by the Canadians themselves, the RCF, and used extensively by the Royal Navy, but it never achieves the fame of its American counterpart. But the war is not over. The G-suit's greatest test is yet to come. The final battles of the air war will not be decided by 1.5 Gs. They will be decided by the new generation of aircraft just beginning to roll off the assembly lines, machines that can fly faster, turn harder, and dive at speeds approaching the sound barrier. In the final, desperate days of the war in Europe, and in the high-G turning battles against the Japanese Zeros in the Pacific, the G-suit, both the wet and the dry, will face its ultimate test. The accidental invention from a Toronto cancer lab is now a critical piece of military hardware, as vital as the gun sight and the Merlin engine. March 6, 1944, 28,000 feet over northern Germany. The sky is a brilliant, hostile blue. The contrails of hundreds of B-17 flying fortresses stretch for miles, a fragile highway of ice crystals. Alongside them, First Lieutenant Robert Buzz Martin of the 357th Fighter Group. The Oxford Boys hunches in the cockpit of his P-51B Mustang, Peggy 2. His world is defined by cold. It is minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Frost blooms on the inside of his canopy. His oxygen mask feels frozen to his face. This is his 5th hour in the air. His mission: escort the big friends to the most dreaded target in the Reich, Berlin. He's not wearing the Frank suit. He's never even seen it. He's wearing the American solution. The Type G1, a set of tan-coloured cotton G-pants with rubber bladders sewn into the abdomen, thighs, and calves. A flexible rubber hose connects his trousers to a small, metal G-valve on the aircraft's pneumatic system. It is light, comfortable, and dry. For an 8-hour mission from Leiston, England, to Berlin and back, it has to be. He could not survive this trip waterlogged and freezing. The radio, a constant crackle of static and crosstalk, erupts. Bogies, 6 o'clock high, diving through the formation. Buzz's head snaps around, his stomach clenches. It's the nightmare scenario. A company front of Fokker-Wulf F-190s. Their radial engines and yellow noses unmistakable, are diving vertically through the bomber stream. Tracers, like fiery ropes, lash across the sky. He sees a B-17 on his left stagger, its number 2 engine blossoming into a bright orange flower of flame. Blue flight, brake left, brake, brake, brake. Buzz slams his stick to the left and kicks the rudder, his Merlin engine screaming as he rolls his Mustang into a 500 mf dive after a pair of 190s. The Gs build instantly. 3 Gs, 4 Gs. Hiss. He doesn't feel a clamp. He feels a squeeze. The G-valve, sensing the force, has opened. Compressed air floods the bladders in his suit. It's a sudden, reassuring pressure. His legs feel tight, A firm hand presses into his stomach. It's not the liquid armor of the Frank suit. It is not infallible. It is a G-stretcher. It buys him time. The FW-190 he's chasing is good. The German pilot pulls up hard, trying to climb away. Buzz follows, hauling back on the stick. 5 Gs. The pressure on his body is intense. The air bladders are fully inflated, squeezing his legs like blood pressure cuffs. He begins his grunt, the M1 maneuver, tensing every muscle, screaming against his closed glottis to keep the blood in his head. 6 Gs. The world begins to fade. This is the grey out. The edges of his vision blur. The brilliant blue sky washes out. The FW-190 in his gun sight dims, but he is not blacking out. The suit is giving him that extra 1.5 Gs of tolerance. It allows him to ride the grey, to function on the very edge of unconsciousness. The German pilot, he knows, has nothing, no suit, only muscle. The FU-190's turn suddenly softens. The pilot, on the verge of G-lock, has been forced to ease off the pressure. It's the same mistake the Vichy pilot made over Oren, but the sensation for Buzz is entirely different. He hasn't won with a sudden, clean 8G turn. He has won a long, agonizing duel of endurance. Buzz's vision clears just enough. He pulls the stick back, the Mustang shuddering on the edge of a high-speed stall. The FW-190 slides perfectly into his K-14 gun sight. He thumbs the trigger. The P-51 vibrates violently as all 6 50-caliber machine guns erupt. He sees the 50-caliber rounds, a stream of fire and smoke, walk across the 190's left wing, tearing off the aileron and stitching across the fuselage. The FW-190 snaps into an uncontrolled roll and begins its final, fatal dive toward the German fields 25,000 feet below. Buzz breaks away, gasping for oxygen, his heart pounding. The G-pants hiss, the air deflating, the pressure gone. This scene, more than any other, defines the air war in Europe. The American G-suit was the standard. It was mass-produced by the tens of thousands. It was reliable. It was comfortable. It was good enough to give Allied pilots the edge they needed in the most grueling long-distance aerial campaign in history. The logistical genius of the American system, the mass-producible, easy-to-use air suit, had won the day. Wilbur Frank's invention, by comparison, was a specialist tool, but the war wasn't just being fought in the frozen skies over Germany. It was also being fought in the sweltering, humid furnace of the Pacific. April 1st, 1945, off the coast of Okinawa, Sub-Lieutenant Scotty Reed, now a battle-hardened veteran, sits in the cockpit of his new Supermarine Seafire Met, third on the deck of HMS Indomitable, part of the British Pacific Fleet. The heat is oppressive. He is sweating profusely inside his Frank suit. The Royal Navy, in its stubborn wisdom, has not changed its kit. The pilots still waddle to their planes. Filled up with water, cursing the weight and the clammy rubber, the target is Sakishima Gunto, a chain of islands housing kamikaze airfields. Scramble, scramble, bandits inbound. The flight deck is a pandemonium of roaring engines and shouting men. Scotty's Seafire is catapulted off the deck. He joins his squadron, climbing for altitude. The enemy here is not a heavily armed fuck-wolf. It is the Mitsubishi A6M-0, a paper-light aircraft legendary for its ability to turn on a dime. In a low-speed turning fight, the Zero is still king, but Allied pilots have learned don't turn with a Zero, use your power, dive and climb. Zeke appears on his tail, and its cannons blinking. Scotty does the one thing the Zero pilot doesn't expect. He rolls and dives, hard, pulling Gs that would rip the wings off the lighter Japanese plane. The Zero, forced to follow or lose the shot, dives after him. Scotty plunges 10,000 feet, his speed touching 450 knots. The ocean rushes up. This is the ultimate test of the dive bomber pullout. At 3,000 feet, Scotty pulls the stick back into his lap. The Frank suit instantly responds. There is no hiss of air, no delay. The inertia of the water is as fast as the inertia of his blood. The liquid armor slams against his body, a 9G hydraulic cage. His vision is clear, his head is forced down, but he is awake. The Seafire, built on the Spitfire's robust airframe, responds. It groans, the wings flexing, but it holds. Behind him, the Zero pilot, attempting the same maneuver, is not so lucky. The Japanese pilot, with no G-suit, is instantly blacked out. Or, worse, the Zero's lighter airframe disintegrates under the colossal stress. Scotty levels off, his wingtips 100 feet above the waves. He looks back. Nothing. Just an oily smear on the water. The Frank suit, overlooked by the vast air armies of Europe, has proven itself again to be the undisputed king of high-G combat. It is the specialists', the connoisseurs' weapon. The war ends, victory in Europe, victory in Japan, the jet age, which had been screaming in the periphery with the Me-262 and the Gloucester Meteor, now arrives in full force. Pilots are flying Lockheed P-80, Shooting Stars and de Havilland Vampires. These new aircraft present a terrifying new problem. It's not just about the instantaneous 9G of a pullout. Jets can sustain 4, 5 or 6 Gs for 30 seconds or more in a high-speed turn. The American air suit, the G1, starts to fail. The air bladders, while good, are slow to inflate and don't provide total uniform pressure. A pilot in a sustained 6G turn will feel the bladders pulse, and the blood will still slowly drain from his brain. G-lock is back. The aviation medical community is desperate. They need a suit that provides total, uniform, and instantaneous pressure. They need a suit that is more powerful than the air bladders. And in a laboratory in Toronto, Dr. Wilbur Franks dusts off his old research. He looks at his failed invention, the heavy, cold, cumbersome water suit. The principle, he knew, was perfect. The water's hydrostatic lock was flawless. The execution was the problem. The logistics of filling pilots with cold water was a non-starter. But what if, he mused, you kept the principle but replaced the liquid? What if you created a suit with a single, full-length bladder, one that encased the entire leg, and filled it with air? A suit that, when inflated, would mimic the hydraulic, incompressible lock of his original water suit. The Frank's wetsuit was dead, but its ghost, its fundamental scientific principle, was about to be resurrected. His accidental invention, born in a cancer lab, had saved the Royal Navy. Now, its core concept would go on to save the new generation of jet-age pilots, becoming the foundation for every modern G-suit worn by fighter pilots to this day.